Well, the Cold War era in Buffalo was met with similar reactions across the country. There was a real fear that we could be under a nuclear war with the Russians. Soldiers trained, fallout shelters were built into places like schools and public buildings.
And do you know that there's some Cold War history actually built secretly right underneath us? Well, in this unknown story, Daybreak's Erica Brecher and photojournalist Nate Benson take us into a high-ranking New York general's life and underground, where his family's fallout shelter still exists.
You might expect a man of military background to take extra precaution protecting his family, especially during a time of war, fear, and skepticism.
Let us face, without panic, the reality of our times. The fact that atom bombs may someday be dropped on our cities.
It was the Cold War era. Some families built fallout shelters, underground escapes meant to save you in the event of a nuclear doomsday. So when Owen B. Augspurger built a fallout shelter for his family underneath their home in Buffalo, it made sense.
I knew something was being built. Something was odd because they were building the escape hatch.
A brigadier general in the New York Guard, Augspurger was high-ranking and the first to organize a radiological school for officers. He had a big say in Western New York operations. Frank Taylor grew up on the same street and often went to the Augspurger house to play with Owen's 3 kids.
There wasn't a lot of conversation about it, but I do remember the workmen starting to do their work in here and starting by putting this cinder block wall over here.
Fallout shelters were built into a lot of public buildings. You could recognize one by this symbol of both safety and fear.
When the Cuban Missile Crisis hit, we started noticing first at school.
He knew just what to do. He's duck and cover.
As an adult, when you think about duck and cover, what's this desk going to do for me when the building, absolutely nothing. But hey, it made you feel good.
Private fallout shelters were harder to find. But if you had the money, maybe you built one. And that's exactly what Owen Augspurger did.
He was always one step ahead of everybody, and he was always planning and very thoughtful about other people, and especially gave us children a really privileged life. He worked very, very hard.
A dark, inconspicuous hallway at the end of the basement leads to somewhere else.
When this steel door closes, you lock the rest of the world out.
In what's left of the shelter today, steel rods support a cinder block ceiling. 7 bunk beds would have fit the family of 5, a great aunt and a guest.
There was a bathroom area, and there was, lots and lots of storage.
So much storage that almost everything, like seats, opened up.
And then they stocked everything with water and food and coloring books and crayons and activities. There was batteries and flashlights, and there was silverware and paper products.
A necessary consideration in the blueprints for a 20 by 20 room that might house up to 7 people for a while.
And then you sort of realize that, gee, my father was really planned well for an experience that we were lucky enough not to ever have.
When we were able to see this, when it was completed, I was just absolutely amazed. And then I started to think, what's going to happen to us? I think they thought that if it was advertised and there was a crisis, how are you going to tell your friends no?
And so, even though some observant neighbors knew the shelter had been built, Augspurger's fallout shelter went largely undiscussed, even with his own kids.
There was this crisis going on in this country, and this is why this was built.
Which makes you wonder, how many other families built a private, secret shelter under their homes in Western New York?
It made me a little more aware of what's going on in the world.
So act now. Someday your life may depend on it.
Erica Brecher, Channel 2 News.
The family actually didn't want us saying exactly where the house is in Buffalo, so kind of keeping it secret and private.
Still amazing after all that time we have nuclear weapons and we haven't disarmed around the world. It's just crazy. And back then it was just us and the Russians. Now who knows how many countries have them. And the world is not the most peaceful place it has ever been.